This week, Emmet and I look at Jack Kirby's The Forever People, another title in his Fourth World saga. It turns out to contain powerful social commentary. How come it's not discussed more in comics circles? We'll talk about possible reasons that it's not and why it should be. First, if you appreciate the work we do on Deconstructing Comics and our other podcasts, we'd love it if you'd support the show at patreon.com/deconcomics for as little as $2 a month. Check out our goals and rewards and pledge your support now at patreon.com/deconcomics. This is Tim.
This is Emmet.
And this is Deconstructing Comics. Welcome to Deconstructing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo with Emmet in the outback somewhere in Australia. How are you doing?
Mm-hmm. I'm very well. I've discovered overnight that our house has been attacked by Portuguese millipedes.
Oh no!
And apparently they can be quite the infestation. And so. Yes, that's something I spent this morning looking up. I was like, what the hell are these things that are everywhere? Apparently they're harmless. You know, it's not a good idea for them to get into your food. They will eat it all, mulch it, and destroy it. But yes, they are a known pest in this part of the world. Portuguese millipedes. Little black wrinkly things.
Huh. How did they get there from Portugal?
They were somebody's studied this. They were first detected in I want to say South Australia at a port. They just came on the boat.
Yeah, invasive species.
Yeah.
So is this worse or better than having kangaroos bombing you?
Oh, I've just stopped. I've just given up. The kangaroos have won. The kangaroos are. I was watching Resident Evil, the new Resident Evil film, and you know it's going for this creepy atmosphere. And I was watching Resident Evil, and then I was just hearing these munching sounds outside the windows. Such a bizarre movie about zombies. So I was going, "Oh, the kangaroos are they're just like right up against the wall of my house, obviously, chewing the cud, literally."
Okay, well, you got a lot of fertilizer then.
Yeah, it added to the atmosphere of watching this horror movie that there was something outside just letting me know, I'm here. What are you going to do about it?
By the way, we might as well do this on the podcast, but I was cracking up at the last episode you did with Kumar. We were debating whether or not you needed to say, this is Kumar, this is Emmet at the beginning of the show.
Yes.
Right, well, yeah, my thought has been, well, when early, many years, this show's been going on for over 16 years now, but early on, I used to have, do that with, interviewees, too, and then I got to thinking, well, that's kind of weird, because they're not hosting it. So I said, with interviewees, let's not do that, just when we're kind of co-hosting, for a review, but if we're going to interview somebody, we should, whoever is hosting or interviewing could do that separately, but not the guest. It feels kind of weird to me, anyway.
Fair enough. Yeah, it caused some confusion. There was some cross signals and that.
Right. Okay, so we're back on the Fourth World train here on Forever People 2 through 8. Talked about 1 a while back with the Jimmy Olsen stuff because that was the reading order suggested by comicbookreadingorders.com. So now this is really our introduction to the Forever People. Issue 1 was more about Superman.
Yeah.
Or as much about Superman as it was about the Forever People.
It was also quite dry as well, and stilted. And I read that issue in association with the Jimmy Olsen stuff, as you mentioned, and my impression of it was, oh god, this is going to be a slog, because if everything else is like this is going to be rough,
Mm-hmm.
And then this issue, which I believe is titled Super War, oh my god, so much more fun. So much more fun. And because Superman's not involved, there's no Superman there. There's no one detracting from these characters. We actually get to know them a little bit better, and they are interesting characters, and they've got personalities that are intriguing, and their power sets are really interesting. And yeah, this is what the first issue should have been.
Yeah, that first issue feels like a misstep now. Now that we've read more, it doesn't really feel like the first issue fits in very well.
Yeah, you know, the suspicion always is, is that an editorial note? You know, you need to establish them more within the world. We need Superman to be there, so we have a handover of some kind. But I don't know. Maybe Jack thought he needed to actually slowly segue across, like as he had been with the Jimmy Olsen stuff. But this is, you know, I'll just come out and say it. I'm in love with the character Big Bear. I love Big Bear. More Big Bear, please. I want all of the Big Bear.
Yeah, well, we were talking before we got started here. It's interesting that nobody else has really done anything with these characters who are owned by DC. They very easily could, but as far as we know, nothing.
Yeah, so now there's a whole sequence in Morrison and Jones's Final Crisis that makes a lot more sense to me, where there were these characters who were the Japanese Justice League, and they meet Sonny Sumo, and they're clearly being introduced as sort of echo of the Forever People, because the new gods are descending through our reality in Final Crisis. They're crashing into our reality. So there's this idea of all these sort of versions of them are appearing, but sort of depowered, or they're homeless, or they're gangsters, or there's all these sort of echoes of the sort of archetypes of the new gods. And clearly the Japanese Justice League characters were meant to be this young group of superior people who sort of captured that optimism and that future forward theme that Kirby was going for with the Forever People. The difference is with Morrison's script and the choice of characters, I feel as if the Japanese characters, well, they're just Japanese versions of the Justice League. Whereas the Forever People under Kirby, they're an entirely new concept. He's, particularly with Big Bear and Parzival, I feel as if he was trying out new ideas of what a superhuman could be, how it could work, and a lot of it is sort of moving away from the old superhero archetypes. So I feel like Final Crisis missed the mark on this sort of allusion to the Forever People. I don't think it actually captures the intent of what Kirby was going for here. But yeah, that's the only other time I can think of them sort of re-emerging, or somebody trying to do an attempt at the Forever People. It was Final Crisis, which more or less buried them.
So the second issue is dated May 71, so I assume this was monthly. I didn't check that. So we're reading stuff that came out in 71, maybe a little into 72 here. And the Forever People are, what, 4 guys and a girl, which kind of feels... I was thinking, you know, what might have felt progressive here in 1971 doesn't now. You know, you got one woman and her power is she's beautiful, or that's not her only power, but... And then you got one black guy who's called Viking the Black, because all black superheroes must have black in their names.
It's pretty unfortunate. There's a bit later, there's some time travel shenanigans later on where he corrects someone on his name, and it's pretty bad. I was like, just your name is Viking. Just say that.
Yeah, and the woman is Beautiful Dreamer, and then we have Seraphan, who's kind of a cowboy.
Yes, is it Seraphan or is it Parzival?
It's Seraphan.
Seraphan, okay, sorry.
And yeah, he's got these things in his hat band that look like bullets, but they've actually got all these other weird powers.
Yes, I really like his whole deal. I really think he's a fantastic concept.
And you mentioned Big Bear, who is
Mm.
not literally a bear, but he's large and he's got a kind of furry looking costume.
Yeah, and he's really interested. This second page of this issue is where I realized, oh my God, Big Bear is amazing. Which is he starts investigating the linguistics of 20th century people on the street. Like he starts discussing, oh, what kind of dialect are you speaking? And he's really interested. He's curious, and he's interested in communication and how people communicate. And I find that very, very charming.
Hmm. Yeah, and at one point, I think it was in issue 2, where somebody's telling him jokes and he's laughing. It's like going back and what did he say?
Ancient
Experiencing,
vaudeville.
yeah, ancient vaudeville. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for the experience, brother. I feel like, we could have had Jason Momoa playing this guy. He's got that same energy.
And then Mark Moonrider. What is his power? Didn't quite get
Later
that.
on, we see he's got these radiation powers. But he uses them in a very interesting way. He's got this radiation touch, but he's the leader. He's the sort of telling what to do. But I feel as if we didn't get to spend enough time with him because it wasn't just him zapping people with radiation. He was doing different things with them. And I think it's sort of Kirby again trying to explore that concept of the radiation superhero in a new way.
But going into this, I was thinking, is this going to be more just like Jimmy Olsen? But I felt like it was a little more focused than the Jimmy Olsen stuff. It felt a little bit more like conventional storytelling. I mean, there's still a fire hose of ideas, but yeah, it felt a little more, a little easier to keep up with.
Yeah, and it's more of it. It's more itself, you know. It's more a story that's told within its own world. The issue with Jimmy Olsen was that it was sort of falling between a couple of different stools. You had the Superman stuff, you had Jimmy Olsen, Newsboy Legion, you had the New Gods stuff, and then you had whatever sort of incidental episodic action had to enter into the proceedings, potentially filler. And that was all a bit confusing. Whereas this is very much we're from New Genesis, we're here on Earth, we're trying to stop Darkseid, and we're young and we're happening. And also, people keep calling us hippies, so there's a bit of commentary about how much society, hates the young, is threatened by the young, particularly this idea of this hippie movement.
It's the generation gap, man.
There's this generation gap going on, and Kirby's interested in that, and that's a really interesting theme. So Darkseid almost is a maximal version of the oppression of the young that's happening within the hippie experience in America at this time. There's a lot going on, but as you say, but it's more directed. It's more thematic as well.
And at least in like issues 3, 4, I felt like there was a lot of symbolism going on that I could kind of actually figure out what it was supposed to be symbolic of.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly when kind of scanning my notes here, in issue 3, 4, a bunch of people are just rounded up, treated like animals, and it was clearly drawing on the Holocaust.
Yeah.
And even at one point painting on someone's storefront an S for scapegoat. And I think what was it, a J for Jew in Nazi Germany that they would paint on the front of your house or your business. To see it happening, I think, in a little bit more modern context to just like people who are not even particularly different from anybody, they're just the ones who were kind of randomly chosen, is pretty disturbing.
Yeah, and it gets even more disturbing when the sort of entertainment industry gets involved. Let's say we can get to that, but Kirby's like he's playing hard with this.
it made the whole actual idea of what happened in the 30s and 40s feel a little more real. You know, you see like these kind of average people being treated like that.
Well, it's interesting your choice of words there in terms of making it feel more real, because I think that's largely the concern of the anti-fascist movement, which is these events, what the way they're recorded, the way we are taught them in schools, it's always to create this sense of distance, this sense of, oh, that was a long time ago, that was in another country, that was another kind of people, or oh, the people didn't really know what they were doing, all this kind of stuff. Whereas look, the anti-fascist approach is to make it more present, to make it more, no, these are things that ordinary people willingly went along with. These are the things you need to look out for. This is where fascism conflates people's sense of powerlessness with the ability to blame and victimize a minority, and rise up from that. And that's something we are right in this moment in time, right in this point in history. This is something that's happening again. So it's fascinating just the way you said it that way. But like Kirby's clearly, he's saying no, this is something that can just spontaneously happen. Now, evil space gods are responsible, but the evil space gods and their presence on Earth is because they know that humanity has this capacity for great evil, and they're simply pressing the joy buttons in the brain that make people do this. That's what Glorious Godfrey's whole bag is. He likes to
Glorious Godfrey is this classic demagogue, reminding me of Hitler or a certain orange guy much more recently.
Well, the bouffant hair, I mean, my God.
But I mean, you can see echoes of lots of different things, including things that happened after this was written, and he's like preaching Darkseid as kind of a potential leader or savior, and he calls Darkseid the cosmic hunting license, the right to point the finger or the gun.
Incredible.
And yeah, I mean, this is what demagogues do, right? They give you license to be your worst self.
Yes. I also wrote down it's the others, Godfrey, those who don't think right. That idea of again, othering people for the sake of what makes them different, and then blaming them, holding them responsible for everything that's wrong with your life. Glorious Godfrey also owes a lot to Burt Lancaster. There's a film, Burt Lancaster, where he played a sort of huckster type figure. And he had that distinctive hair, so I can see that as an influence in the character too.
Okay. And then, so once these people are rounded up, they're put in this amusement park where they are behind glass that distorts both what they're saying and what they look like, so that the people attending the amusement park see like happy things going on, or like the people appear to be laughing rather than shouting at them to help them get out of there.
Yeah, and for those listening, this is not subtle. This is, an absolute broadside against Disney and the whole Disney machine in terms of its function within American society, and its distractions and its way of paving over inequality within society and the profit motive behind Disney. Well,
I hadn't thought about Disney, but I mean, I think there are a lot of cases, not just Disney, where what we see looks like fun, and we don't see the crap that's going on behind the scenes to like the people who are involved in it.
Yeah, well, it's called Happyland, isn't it? Kirby calls it Happyland, and it's the Disney, the happiest place on earth. And as we speak at right now, Disney's involved in a case where it's been found they're supporting a bill, again, a sort of homophobic piece of legislation, and they've been asked to, comment on this, and they were saying, "Oh, we don't want to get involved in politics," but meanwhile, there actually are
Hmm.
funding these efforts. So there is something here. Um, the Happyland stuff, the sequence with the people being detained behind this glass, and people can only see like humorously dancing skeletons or something, and Moonriders like slamming on the glass, "Help you, you out
Uh-huh.
there, help me! What's wrong with you? I know you can hear me through this opening. Why don't you just stop? Why do you just stop and sit and stare?" Um, and they're, "Oh, it's a funny skeleton." That is horrifying.
Hmm.
It is
Hmm.
horrifying, and it's so chilling. And what a brilliant sequence! Everything about it just amazing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that set of issues there was what particularly impressed me about these 7 that we read. I did feel, Kirby's limitations to some extent too, like some really leaden dialogue in some places, or like people speaking so unnaturally. What is issue 6 or 7? We see we're introduced to some of these other characters back in New Genesis, and
Mm.
there's this little kid who is sadly not really drawn more like a miniature adult and speaks more like a miniature adult too. That that scene felt really awkward to me. Like, this is not a kid.
Yeah, and from my memory, I'm going to have to reread Hunger Dogs, but that is it. Esri is the name of the character.
Oh, I don't remember.
But yeah, is quite a tragic figure ultimately.
Hmm.
The end of that storyline. Um, and I wrote down a couple of howlers. Um, I like this one though. "My life functions have dwindled to microscopic minimum." It's amazing. It's amazing. Um, issue 3 has the line, "We still have 1 millisecond."
Yeah,
Like, well, you
not just a
shouldn't be
second,
speaking.
but a mini second.
But as we've said before, the actual um, concepts are so thrilling that
Mm-hmm.
I will allow the occasional howler. But we something of a recurring theme in our discussions is how Kirby tries to adopt the huckster persona.
Yeah, he's kind of trying to be Stan Lee, and it doesn't always work.
Yeah, and there's one in particular. I can't read my own handwriting here. It was at the end of issue 4. My By George, he opens it. "By George," uh, and then he says, "And I, Jack Kirby, am much closer to this saga than you are, reader. This idea of
Mm-hmm.
you don't know what's going to come next," and it just felt like such a Leeism
Mm-hmm.
that he's not. It's not in him to do. It feels it's not a natural fit for him. It's
Uh-huh.
awkward for him to even try and adopt this sort of phraseology, and he's clearly made this connection between he's aware that Stanley's this bullshit artist, but he's feels he needs to do this now. The the character I was thinking of, Burke Lancaster playing, was from The Sweet Smell of Success, and it's JJ Hunsucker, and I feel like he's associating that kind of character with Stanley as well, like the bullshitter, the
Mm-hmm.
person who's like in effect lying to you, exaggerating for effect, and I just he can't do it. He just can't do it.
Hmm.
When he's sincere, he's good.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, and the simple poetry of his writing occasionally does come through. This just like, as I said before, the line, was it? "It's the others, Godfrey, those who don't think right." That says so much.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite a striking comment for like the mob to make. But yeah, we will also have things like "in the mind of someone nameless." What? What
Well,
do you mean?
when we first started talking about the Fourth World, we talked about how Kirby had thought that at DC he'd just be the idea guy and he wouldn't have to write and draw everything, but DC was paying for Jack Kirby. They wanted Jack Kirby. And I was thinking, DC might have gotten better stories if they had Jack be a little bit more of the idea guy and, of course, draw everything or a lot of it, but work with another writer who was more experienced to do the dialogue and kind of keep the fire hose of ideas under control. He also needed a spell checker. Did you notice prerogative? And I mean, that's how we usually say it because prerogative is kind of hard to say. But
Yeah.
But I mean, I was in my 20s before I knew how to spell it correctly. But yeah, somebody would have caught that, I would think. Also a fact checker, because issue 7 says that Japan has 3 main islands and it has 4. I was not going to miss that one.
Yeah, again, like you can see, it's what you said before when you were talking about the Forever People. The idea of at the time maybe this was very progressive, but now it's kind of unfortunate. Like the whole Sonny Sumo thing is
Right.
really interesting character. He's got these abilities from like these traditions that have been passed down over the centuries to him. He can sort of recover from any injury, but then the way some of the things about him are a bit unfortunate,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah, the mysterious Orient bit.
yeah, that whole thing, mysterious orient. I found the bit I was trying to. This is the Kirby's attempt at elitism. What happens next will astound you. By George, it astounded even me, and I, Jack Kirby, am much closer to this saga than you are, reader. There's been nothing in comics that's equaled it. It's like I've seen it, and I'm still shaking. Now you see it. Here it comes in the next issue. Oh my goodness! Stop with all the words.
Yeah, I mean, I think we said it before, but you can see where the things that Stan was better at than Jack.
Yeah, yeah. But it's he is an idea guy, but he is also somebody who's not just coming up with concepts; they have meaning. He's trying to say something. He's trying to get across his idea. He's trying to talk about fascism. He's trying to talk about society. He's trying to get these big themes into his superhero comics. He's trying to talk about the youth movements and what that means, and maybe which way the future is going. The potential that's present in the young people of his time. Godfrey is a fascinating creation. I think he's referred to as a revelationist a couple of times. Darkseid calls him a revelationist. But then when we see some of the sort of where they've got the justifiers are terrifying. But they at one point you see a base for the justifiers, and it's a revival tent. It looks just like a revival tent.
Yep.
So that old-timey religion bullshit, where they used religion to justify their hate. Literally what the justifiers say, but that's what revivalism played into. A lot of it was about othering. It was about finding someone to blame for the economic misfortune of people during the Depression, the Dust Bowl communities. It's like, well, it's them. It's probably the Jews. Like that was one of the major targets of these white evangelicals. And yeah, I think he's weaving all this stuff in, and it's not just simple effect. It's not just spectacle. It's not just an entertainment. He's trying to communicate ideas, and that's why I love Seraphin so much, because Seraphin is this new god who's obsessed with westerns, but he takes all of the aspects of the cowboy that imply violence, and he uses it to communicate.
Mm,
Like
mm.
all the little bullet devices are they usually are they're tools. And I was like, was Jack Kirby reading Marshall McLuhan or something? Like there's communications theory here. Like there's some interesting sort of, Seraphin is a very interesting concept for a character. And yeah, as I said to you before we started recording, I was like, it's driving me nuts that nothing's been done with these characters.
Mm-hmm. Coming up, more on the Forever People's social commentary, possible reasons why it's not more highly regarded, and more. But first, a reminder to join us for trivia quizzes, reviews of The Amazing Spider-Man by Lee and Ditko, and more. Check out our goals and rewards at patreon.com/deconcomics. If you'd rather give a one-time donation, you can do so via PayPal by sending it to mail@deconstructingcomics.com. We appreciate your support. Tim and Paul race to the scene, where a 1960s Batman TV episode needs analyzing. The show's attitude toward civics.
A loyal taxpayer stooping to criminal methods.
Toward women.
A dish.
Toward time management.
All in all, Batman, you've been pretty busy.
As well as the history, the casting, and more. Tune in via iTunes or Stitcher, or visit tothebatpoles.libsyn.com for
To the Batpoles.
Another thing that I really wanted to mention here in the Happyland sequence in issue 4, where Darkseid is there and he runs into this man and his granddaughter, and
yes.
The granddaughter is scared, and the grandfather is saying to Darkseid, like, you're not real, right? You're just in a costume or something. And Darkseid says, no, I'm the real thing. And he scolds the man for trying to hide the presence of great evil from his granddaughter when everyone has evil in them. He says, how can he cope with me by shunning me, his other face?
Yes.
And I thought that was really interesting that, we do tend to want to hide from kids that there's evil in the world. But none of us is without some evil.
Yeah, or the things we do have evil consequences. They cause suffering, or we enjoy the benefits of someone else's suffering, through cheaply available clothing, food, technology. Somebody in the world is being exploited. Their labor is being exploited. Their life is being shortened for our benefit, for our comfort. Mm-hmm. That's what he's confronting.
Evil that we do without even realizing it, maybe.
Yes. And that's very much what Happyland's all about. Like, it's these people are being entertained at this park. They're being entertained by these, caricature, Disney-esque creatures, but those are distorted reflections of people actually suffering, and that's entertainment. Like, it's not subtle,
no,
but it's brilliant.
It's
absolutely
powerful. It's something a lot more powerful than I was expecting to read in here, I have to say.
Yes. And it's it is overt social commentary as well. Like it's like I say, I keep repeating myself, it's not subtle, but like I think it's powerful, as you say, and it's something that I find lacking in a lot of the uses of the New Gods from other writers, where typically the New Gods are they're a power set, they're a challenge, they're Darkseid and Superman are going to tear up Metropolis in this fight in the middle of the street. Like, that's the level we're at.
Also, not that I spent a lot of time doing this, but I was Googling around trying to find some, like, really insightful commentary of this, and I couldn't find it. And, I feel like comics critics are kind of overlooking this now, and nobody's really commenting on it besides, here's a new edition of this, and it's all kind of funny and weird and Kirby. But I think people need to take a more serious look at this.
Yes, and there is that argument that whenever somebody tries to speak some home truths, let's say, there is this defensive reaction within the commentariat. That's cringe. You know, that's pretentious. Um, over intellectualizing, whatever. You've overthought of it. You're overthinking it. I think Kirby would get hit with that stick a couple of times. You're overthinking it. My memory of the Forever People and people commenting on the Forever People, and again, reading up in comics and listening to podcasts or reading comics websites back in the day. My memory is a lot of people saying that the Forever People was an embarrassment. That it was Jack Kirby trying to be down with the kids and failing spectacularly, right? And
an old man trying to keep up with the new stuff. Yeah, I can imagine people seeing it that way, but I think that's kind of selling it short.
Absolutely. And I think maybe that does come out from a grain of truth, which was that I think he was aiming this at campus college students. That he was trying to hit them with material that he thought they would, being educated in political theory or in philosophy or history, they'd be interested in this as a work of allegory, and seeing the way some revolutionary politics were coming into the mainstream. He thought this would be swept up in that, and it didn't happen. So potentially that is true, but that has no bearing on the quality of the work itself. The work itself is trying to do all those things and is doing a decent job of it. And I don't find it embarrassing or cringe-inducing or trend chasing or anything like that. I was thrilled by this. I was messaging previous guest on Deconstructing Comics, Dr. Matt Finch. I was messaging him about this, and I was saying I spent the day just reading Fur People. Absolutely love it. Why aren't people talking about this more? Why it's so gorgeous in its idealism and eyes wide open approach to here's some fascism in our culture as a theme. And he replied that that he thinks that the way we approach this podcast, we're finding goodness in so many overlooked things. And I feel that's exactly what you've just talked about as well. This is an overlooked piece of work. Some people bounce right off Kirby. I think that's a taste thing, and I can appreciate that. Some people try to read him and just go, no, I can't, right? That's a factor, but I think it's important to persevere because it's of a kind with the era's protest music, with the sort of more experimental fiction that was happening at the time, a wider embrace of radical politics that was happening. This is part of that. This is part of the warp and weave of that period.
Yeah, I mean, I think the cringiest part of it is some of the dialogue and the Lee-esque narration you were talking about before. But,
the cringiest parts of it for me is the attempts to market it. In the style of Stan Lee, and I wonder if Kirby felt unsupported because I do wonder if they just didn't know what to do with this as a book.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't have a clear context of what else DC was putting out at the time, but I'm sure this was very different from all of it.
Yeah. I mean, I like Sonny Sumo is a fascinating character as well, and was it Londar was the other one who's a sort of a lone wanderer outside of New Genesis. He's wandering across the post-apocalyptic landscape of dead gods.
Yeah, this is one of those backup stories.
Yeah. Lonar. And Lonar is amazing. Again, it's just a short little fable. I think there's a sequence later where Lonar meets Orion as well. Lonar finds a mythical horse who he immediately bonds with. But this idea of him saying, no, I'm just going to wander and I'm going to reflect on the destruction of the gods and what led to that and what that means. That's a really interesting idea. Can I have some Lonar? I want some Big Bar. I want some Lonar as well.
Did you notice on the covers that refers to apparently a backup feature of the Sandman,
Yeah,
which
Sandman.
I mean, it apparently was not done by Kirby because it's not included in the collection. But I was sort of surprised that they were throwing other work into these Kirby books.
I'm not. I thought Kirby did Sandman. I thought Kirby did Sandman.
Did he? I don't know. I'm puzzled that it's not in here then. But
the Gas Mask Avenger. Well, they're just keeping it to that particular.
I wonder if those are collected somewhere.
Yeah. So Kirby created Sandman with Joe Simon.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm not. Yeah, it's the Wesley Dodds. No, I'm wrong. That yeah, Wesley Dodds. Yeah, correct. But I think he's following on from another character who's also called Sandman, and then he appears later in Neil Gaiman's Sandman, who's a completely different character. But I do remember Gaiman talking about how he had read some of the Kirby stuff and he wanted to take the name of the character and just do his own thing, and he felt it was slightly embarrassing. Right? So again, like what I was saying to you before about people writing about the Fur People saying it was cringe, I think a part of that comes from the sort of 80s movement that, Gaiman was part of, Alan Moore was part of. There's your one per episode.
Grim
Frank
and
Miller,
gritty.
certainly. Yeah. Where there was this attempt to let's be more serious now. Let's be more literary now. Let's and they shortchanged Kirby. Some of the people within the movement. I think Moore had a lot of respect for Kirby, and if you read his book Supreme from Image, he has a whole tribute to Kirby, which is quite beautiful in one of the issues. But yeah, there was a sort of granddad's off his meds kind of attitude, and I would be curious to read some of Kirby and Simon's Sandman. There is a collection of that. You can get it. So yeah, maybe worth checking out.
Well, I mean, that attitude, it reminds me that, we saw that even in the 70s when Kirby went back to Marvel, the new generation there was kind of dismissive of him and even, mucking with his stuff in the editing stage.
Yeah, because
and planting letters in the letter column against him.
He was around for 30 years or something, at that point. They would have been looking at him going, oh, God.
Mm-hmm.
There would have been a sense of him being from a previous era and that we're the future. But yeah, I think that's a shame. And certainly, as I said before, the Forever People, they are trying to engage with the changing times in a way that a lot of superhero comics simply sidestep altogether. They keep rehashing concepts that are now 70, 80, 90 years old and maybe update some of the references, but that's it. The concepts do not change. And say what you will about the Forever People as a book, I do think, Big Bear, Seraphin, Moonrider, even Viking the Black, who's something of a tech wizard. There is a sense of them changing with the times and being a different kind of concept for a superhuman. And a lot of it does relate to technology, and a lot of it does relate to how interconnected we all are. We haven't talked about, what's his name? The Infinite Man?
Oh, well, yeah. We need to talk about the Mother Box.
Mother Box as well. Yeah, well, that goes to that.
Yeah, because there's a connection there. So, yeah, the Forever People are carrying around this kind of elaborate smart speaker that is kind of alive and can, do all this crazy stuff, and it transports itself at some points in the story. But also, if the Forever People see a crisis, they all put their hands on the Mother Box, and the Mother Box causes them to trade places with the Infinity Man, who is kind of this superhero who's going to set everything right, although sometimes the bad guys get the better of him. Yeah.
It even has a sort of magic word, taru, I think is how it goes.
Taaruu.
And it's because we met the Infinity Man in the Superman issue, the first issue. Like he appeared there. And I think it's unfortunate because the implication was that they are basically these goofy kids from Supertown and they don't have any abilities really. And the Infinity Man is their way of fighting the big bad. But as the series progresses, there's less and less Infinity Man. And then we get to meet the individual character. Like Big Bear is incredibly strong and he actually has a force redirect powers. Seraphim has these strange abilities that are sort of Deus Ex Machina, but like at the same time they're quite interesting. Moonrider has the radiation powers. Beautiful Dreamer has psychic powers. Viking can interact with New Gods technology in a way that the others can't. He's a specialist. They all have these abilities, and I feel like the Infinity Man cheated us out of that insight into them.
Yeah, he feels unnecessary. Like, isn't this book about the Forever People? Shouldn't they be the ones who are defeating the bad guy? Why are we bringing in this other guy? And yeah, as you say, eventually he kind of fades away, and it's more focused on the title characters.
Yeah, and in fact, when we get to because obviously Darkseid's involved, so we do have people getting shot through time by the Omega beams. But we get to issue number 7, and they're all split up through time, which is, Morrison did a lot with in Final Crisis and The Return of Bruce Wayne. When they're separate and they're stuck in the different time periods, we get to see them interacting and using their powers and getting the better of other characters, and they actually do come across as really entertaining. We get a sense of who they are. Like Seraphin's stuck in the present, and he's up against all these justifiers. He's trying to survive. But Big Bear, sort of observing the retreat of the Romans from ancient Britain, and like not letting them fight back against the Romans. He's like, no, I want to watch this. Such a brilliant sequence. It's so funny. He's like, no. This is a historic moment. I need to see it.
Yeah, I'm nerding out here.
And then he sort of accidentally creates King Arthur. Like, it's just brilliant. It's so good.
Is that what happened? I guess I didn't quite appreciate that.
Yeah. So, like, the guy who was the sort of contact for the Romans, because there's always been this theory that King Arthur was a Roman centurion. So that's one of the theories. And Big Bear has taken all their weapons and shoved them into a tree. And they can't pull them out. None of them can pull their weapons out of the tree. And then he takes this guy who they were going to basically kill him because they see him as a traitor because he helped the Romans. So he's saying, all right, you pull on this sword here. And then he basically smacks the sword through the tree. And some of the ancient Britons, they're called Gawain and Lancelot, like Lancelot de Lac, Gawain, the Green Knight. And I say, hail Arta, the warlock's pet. If he likes him, I like him, and I like him. So I like him, as in I follow him.
Okay, and pulling the sword out of the tree is
he's pulling the sword out of the tree.
Out of the stone.
They're following Arthur, who's Arthur.
Yeah, Arta. Yeah.
And they confuse Big Bear with Merlin. So he's a warlock.
Okay.
So that's where the story. Big Bear has actually changed history. Created a new part. Yeah, and that's almost like a joke the way it comes across. And it's just because he didn't want them to fight. He wanted them to observe this moment in peace. So he got rid of all their weapons.
Yeah, and then Mark and Beautiful Dreamer end up at Ford's Theater the night Lincoln was shot and try to prevent it, but then they are pulled out of there before they can stop it. But they would have changed history quite possibly.
Yeah, and Viking the Black, that's what that's the bit I was talking about before. Unfortunately, because like they keep calling him. What do they keep calling him? I'm just looking it up now. They keep calling him Black.
Yeah.
Speak Black. And Like, why don't you call me Viking? It happens to be my name. I was like, yeah, but honestly, dude, you could have been calling yourself Viking the entire time. Like, you call yourself Viking the Black, which is unfortunate. But yeah, he seems to be hanging out with the conquistadors, and he I think he creates the myth of the gold in South
Florida.
America. Yeah. So yeah, they're interfering with time in all these different ways. Actually, like the Happyland stuff's amazing, but the issue where they're all lost in time, that's one of my favorite issues of the collection.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fate of Sumo as well. It's just really great.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't read it, because I do have I never read this before.
No, me neither.
I said to you before, people were sort of very dismissive of it. I suspect a lot of people listening to this recording will not have read the Forever People. And, hand on my heart, folks, I would recommend you read it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's this beautiful package. The collection that I'm looking at is a really well put together graphic novel. As you've said, so many concepts in here, there's so many ideas, so many interesting characters. And the art's beautiful too. Like, there's some stunning art in this.
Oh yeah, lots of Kirby crackle. More than I think we ever saw in Jimmy Olsen. There wasn't really as much opportunity for it there.
Yeah. And then there's some weird stuff. Like issue 8 seems to be all about like a Jonestown type situation as well. This sort of South American cult and
before Jonestown happened.
Yeah. And the whole thing about Jim Jones was he had this very powerful voice. He was able to get people to. He was very charismatic, intensely charismatic, and this character.
What, $1 billion Bates?
Oh my goodness! billion, because Sonny Sumo had the anti-life equation. $1 billion Bates also has the anti-life equation. So he's able to. A big theme of Kirby with Darkseid is this idea of suppressing free will. So whereas Sumo would use it for good, $1 billion Bates is like wildly exploiting it for his own benefit.
Right. Yeah. Just making people do what he wants them to do.
How I got onto this track was that there's this cult in the story, this masked cult, and the design of them, the look of them is so freaky. It's so weird. And again, that's Kirby's imagination at work.
Yeah, those pink, I don't know, are those masks? I mean, it looks like you can see through them like they're empty skulls.
Yeah. I think they're masks. But like they're so unusual.
Mm-hmm.
And then the lead guy happens to look like a KKK Cyclops. So I think that's a deliberate illusion.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the masks are weird.
Yes.
Very strange.
Yeah, well, I guess they are masked because, we see one be removed late in the story.
One thing as well that because a lot of this is the crumbs that Kirby has here get picked up by other writers down the track and then blown up. A lot of the stuff that Kirby serves up here is clearly just him building and building, but we never really got to the final version of whatever this was going to be. I mentioned the anti-life equation. There's a line, I wish I'd made a note of where it was, but there's a line where a character says that this is one of many equations. So I think there was a lot more to it. I don't think it was just because now, every storyline with Darkseid, he's always trying to get the anti-life equation. But there were other equations. There's other primordial sort of forces that the new gods are aware of. I'm curious what he had in mind for that. I don't know if we have any inkling of that, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I misread it. But I had the sense that there's other stuff that he could have maybe got to as well, not just about suppressing free will, but
quite possibly.
maybe more positive ones.
Well, we know that this ended a lot sooner than he wanted it to.
Yes.
Okay, so I found this more recommendable than I might have expected.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, all the characters like Lonar. Come on, people. Where's my Lonar miniseries? I want more Lonar. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to rereading the New God stuff now that I have this context. I've also never read the original Mr. Miracle.
Yeah,
so
we will be getting to that too. So
looking forward to that. But this was a really pleasant surprise.
The Forever People is published by DC. You can help the Deconstructing Comics family of podcasts by joining us on Patreon at patreon.com/deconcomics. And go to deconstructingcomics.com to connect to us on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, to shop on Amazon to support the show, and to find links to subscribe to the podcast. Our theme is by J.B. Anderton. If you're looking for some constructive feedback on your comic, send it to us and we'll critique it on our spin-off podcast, Critiquing Comics. Send it to mail@deconstructingcomics.com. We'll read at least 30 pages of it and critique it on the show. Next week, we continue on with our look at the Fourth World with The New Gods, issues 1 through 6. How does it look to Emmet now that he's read Jimmy Olsen and the Forever People? Find out next week. Till then, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Deconstructing Comics.